Hey y'all, I'm James Wright. Welcome to my shop, and my bench wobbles. So here's the problem. Built the bench and I'm finally getting down to the ends where I just have a few more details on it. One of the issues is it's only good at one spot on this floor because my floor is so unlevel that it goes all over the place. And on top of that, my floor has 3/4 inch of wood and then 3/8 of rubber on top of it, which is phenomenal for walking around, dropping tools. The one thing it's not great for is having the bench on here is that it will compress and move, and if I get this going at the right frequency, I can get the bench to wobble, and it looks kind of bad on camera and it's not as great for using. And also with an 800-pound bench moving around, it's actually kind of impressive. But 99% of the time I use it in the same spot. So I want to have something where this goes straight down to the concrete. So I could cut holes in the rubber in the floor and have it go straight down to the concrete, but then it would be hard as I would have to lift the bench up every time I would want to use it. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to cut holes where all the legs are going to be and put in a wooden block that goes right down to it. So I've got basically extensions on my leg that sit flat with the rubber. And that way if I want to roll around, I can still roll it around and then bring it back to the same spot, set it down, and have everything perfectly level so it's locked down. If I really want to, I can think about doing some way of actually attaching it down, but we'll cross that bridge a little later. For now, let's figure out exactly where we want the bench to be and then mark out where we want the holes to be. So the cool thing about these is I can pick it up, set down, and now it's on wheels. And then when I put it back down, pick it up, set down, and now it's back on the ground. I do love having the flexibility and movability of this bench, especially because I rearrange things for classes. But I don't do that all the time, so this isn't something that I have to move constantly. It's something that ends up moving 2, 3, maybe 4 times a year. So at first I need to find the spot on the floor where I want, and I'm going to come along with a Sharpie and mark that out. Yes, I know, the most accurate marking device I could possibly get, a Sharpie. I don't need these holes to be perfectly accurate. I just need them to be close enough. I'm actually going to make the pads a little bit larger. And so because I'm going to use one of my carving knives, very, very sharp, nice, fine knife, that'll allow me to cut down through the rubber. And once I get this cut down, that'll actually lay out where the hole is going to be in the floor. Because the rubber then ends up being the sort of boundaries for it. And the plug I want to put into this, I want it to be slightly larger so it compresses the rubber. But then we get down to the wood underneath, and the question is, how do we cut through this? Now, this isn't actually wood. The previous owner put down a 3/4 inch of a pressboard laminate thing. It's good pressboard laminate, but it is still fairly junky. So I've got a chisel that I don't mind dinging up a little bit, and I'm going to use that to basically turn this into cutting an inlay. I know I'm inlaying into my floor. It's a different concept. But I'm going to go all the way around the outside and then chisel back towards so I can relieve that cut. And then chop down it again. I'm going to keep doing this until I get close to going through because I don't want to drive this chisel down into the concrete underneath. So this ends up taking a little while. If I had a vibratory cutter or an oscillating cutter, that might be the trick to go. And I played with that a little bit on the last one, but I didn't have a good bit for it, and I didn't want to go to the store, and so it was actually faster for me to chisel it out than it was to go buy another bit. And it's a tool that I don't use that often. So yeah, a little bit different for me. This first one ended up taking me probably about 10 minutes or so to cut through, and then the later ones were much faster as I kind of got into a rhythm to it. But you can see how there's basically no grain direction on this until eventually we can lever the piece up, and I ended up breaking off more in there. And then one of the sides had the tongue and groove I had to go in and cut out. And I ended up basically just deciding I'm going to go ahead and bash this chisel into the concrete. You know what? I can sharpen it again, and that's not a problem. The underlayment, I just came in with a utility knife and cut that off and used that to cut into the corners until I get a nice sharp edge. And I want to make sure that this whole shape tapers out rather than in. I want it to get wider at the bottom, if ever so slightly. I do not want it to get narrower at the bottom. Otherwise, when I put the piece in there, it would jam up. Next, we have to look at what wood am I going to put in there. My initial thought was I'd just put in regular flat sawn wood. The problem is the expansion and contraction would be something I want. And I want something to be fairly stable in both directions in there. And so I decided to go with end grain. and I needed to make sure that it didn't grow any higher and cause the bench to go out of bounds. And so having it the end grain up and down, that made it a little easier. And thankfully I had this large piece of white oak beam. I'm going to be using what I have cut off of this for a mailbox coming up here soon. But I decided to use this block. It ended up being like 6 by 8 inches, which is much larger than it needs to be. So I want to flatten off one surface and give myself a good reference surface so that I can mark down. Again, this is what I'm going to be placing everything on, and I'm going to be able to level it once it's in the floor. But at this point, I'm being a little picky. I'm actually being significantly more picky than I need to be. But once I have a flat reference surface, we can mark around that and then cut it off. And of course, what do you use to cut large beams with? Well, a big crosscut saw. And in this case, my best big crosscut saw is actually a buck saw, because this is used for cutting down logs, and that's kind of what I'm doing here. Big crosscut teeth, and it cuts fairly accurately, fairly smoothly, and gives me a relatively clean cut. And I was actually really happy with how I got off of this. And it cuts very, very quickly, especially once you get it going, making sure it's on track, and then line it up, and that cuts straight down the log. It is a beautiful joy to use, and I don't get to use it all the time. I used to use it for a lot of my stock prep, but I've started using disposable saws for that, for ripping across boards. But every now and then I want to pull this out, and it's just a lot of fun. The other thing about the log I'm using is it's relatively wormy, which would normally be a bad thing. But in this case, it's not going to cause a problem. I'm just creating a disc that ends up being about 1.1 inches tall that the bench will sit on. So all of this wormy wood you can see in there is one of those things that it's not going to cause me any problem in the situation, and otherwise this wood is just trash because of it. So I decided to go ahead and use it. I also saw all these cracks in there and realized that those cracks are probably going to be a little bit of a problem. They'll probably split when I start hammering it down in, but that doesn't matter as long as it's all flat and down in at the same level. So if they hold together until they're down in, then the floor holds them together and the cracks really don't matter. But the other problem is I have to make this fit that hole exactly. And so we're going to start treating it like any other wood. We're going to dimension one surface, make sure it's square and true, and then dimension the second surface to be square to the first surface. So I'm getting 2 reference sides. Then we can come in with a marking gauge and mark different distances off of them. And so once I know that they are actual square, and that they match the actual square of the floor, then we can make everything come off of it. So I'll bring in the marking gauge and mark exactly how wide it needs to be and how long it needs to be, and then theoretically, it should fit into the hole. The other nice thing about using the end grain is when I go to pound it into the hole, it has a little bit of compression side to side, so that it will squeeze in a little bit easier. I did have a little bit of trouble cutting this down because cutting the cookie is a delicate thing, and usually for some of the more delicate cutting, I like to actually pull out the Japanese saw. And it works very, very well here for these little pieces that want to break off, and I'm wanting to cut into it without putting much pressure into it. And this one, it really shines out well. Just make sure you use the rip cut teeth on it. Then we can plane off that surface, and then rinse and repeat. Cut the other side and plane that one off. I found this to be rather enjoyable. It was very different work because you don't usually get to cut the wood in this particular orientation. Usually this particular orientation will be resawing. That's a lot more difficult, whereas this, it's not that much. And then you take it to the plane, and the plane actually has to go across the grain, which sounds horrible, but it's actually pretty good. I don't need a good, smooth, clean surface on here. I just need it to be relatively straight, and that makes this kind of fun. So I can fit it down the hole, and I was like, "Ooh, this is fitting really nicely. Maybe I should just hit it." But before I do that, let's clean it all out, because I don't want this to go down and then rest on top of dirt and other things. I want to make sure it's all cleaned and jointed. You can see how the rubber sits on top of the floor here, and I actually like this because I used that seam on the rubber to be the front edge of the bench, and so the bench actually runs along that, making it a little bit easier to straighten things out. So we put it in there, it's getting really close, so I'm just going to pull out the hammer and hit it, and as expected, it all splits apart. But one thing that I wasn't expecting is all of the bug dust from all of those bug holes started shaking out, and that actually ended up pouring out onto the floor underneath and on top, and it was an absolute mess. So that means I need to get rid of it on top, but that also means I need to get rid of it underneath. And on the later ones, I actually went through and cleaned it out of the holes before pounding it in, and that actually works a lot better. But in this case, I'm realizing I need to get at what's underneath, and I just drove it down in there. So we need to pry this out. And so that means getting a chisel that I don't care quite as much about, sticking it into the side and bending it up. Then I pulled it out, vacuumed underneath, and put it back in. And I got a nice flat surface on there. So you can see working at it is it split into a couple pieces. As long as I kept those pieces in line, they all went back in, and I don't need them to be a perfectly clean fit. And I know this is really going to annoy a lot of people, but having them split out like that isn't really a problem in the function of this. So you can see how those go together, and then pound them back in. And now that it's nice and clean and we got all the bug dust out of those holes, it actually goes and seats all the way down the concrete. And you can hear it when we were pounding on it. It felt it in the floor. Luke, my videographer, he's standing a little ways away, and when I hit it with the mallet, you could feel it in the floor, and he's like, "Oh my, I can feel that all the way over here." So that means we have really good contact all the way down, and that made me very, very happy. But that's one, and so we had to do more of them, and each one of them had to be cut individually, and then we put the bench in place, and then we had to actually go and fit it and find out where is it sitting on this and what is the difference on it. Because I had to lift it on and off several times, I grabbed an extra board and used that as a lever, and then I figured out which one of the 4 feet were higher. And in this case, it's one of 2, because if it tips corner to corner, the 2 that it's standing on are the ones that are a little higher. And so we wanted to do a little bit more work to bring this down to the actual thickness we wanted it to be. And that meant bringing out the low angle jack and doing it what it does best. We're taking off a little material all the way across it and then putting it back in place, testing the bench back and forth. And because you're doing end grain, it really is important that the blade has to be sharp. And I ended up actually having to sharpen this one a couple times because we had to take off a decent amount of material. I had to take off probably a good 1/16 inch off of one of these. And it ended up actually balancing back and forth, and I went a little too far, so I had to go take off a little bit more on one of the other legs and working it back and forth until the bench actually sat nice and flat on all 4 of those. And it was a pleasure to set the bench in place and realize that it's not shaking. Anytime that one leg comes off, there's another leg that's also coming off. It was just a great feeling on there. But yeah, it takes a little bit of work, and with a nice low angle on there, it goes down relatively quickly. Just make sure you don't take it off too far. Then we can slide it back in place and test it and go back and forth and back and forth. I ended up taking it off of each spot probably about 4 or 5 times to check it and get it back and forth and then do the other leg. And it was a bit of a hassle, but once it was in place, I was very, very happy with it. Then we can actually go in and really start detailing it. And this is where the feeler gauges come out. And I can see, is it touching on one point of the leg, or is it touching on multiple parts of the leg? And I can stick the feeler in there and try and bevel the angle of the foot to match the spot it's fitting on. And the feeler gauge would then tell me if it's touching at one small spot or if it was touching in a larger area. If it's a larger area, we're good. But if it's touching in one small spot, then I need to be careful of that, because once that one small spot works in, then it's going to sink down. And each of these weren't touching right around the outside, but a large chunk of the inside was actually touching. And that is acceptable as long as they're all about the same, because I'm never going to get a perfect mating surface between these two. That's just a lot of work. But then the fun of actually feeling it and hearing the sound difference between something that's sitting on the rubber and then something that's sitting on the floor, it was a night and day difference, and it made me very, very happy. But this whole time I'm thinking this might not be enough, because if for a normal person and a normal use, this would be good. But because I'm on video and I have close-ups on my hand, I get people messaging me all the time about my bench moving, because you can see it in more detail with the camera being up there. And so I realized I needed to go a step farther and actually lock this down to the concrete. So I found these hook bolts that were long enough to actually go through the leg, through the base, and then into the concrete. And I got a large screw set up so I could run that all the way through down into the wood until I hit the concrete underneath. And then we could actually come back in with the concrete bit and my hammer drill and run it down into the concrete a little ways. It only went about an inch or so into the concrete. It doesn't have to go in very far. I'm just more or less stopping it from bouncing around a little bit. And unfortunately, most of that footage disappeared. I'll probably talk about there in a minute. I don't know where it went. If you happen to see my missing footage, please let me know. But it's basically just pulling out the hammer drill and going down into it. This took a little bit longer than I expected because the bit I needed was longer than I needed. So I actually had to go to the store and get a good long wood bit for it. My hammer drill bit was perfectly fine, but the wood bit I needed something more. And I wanted this to go all the way down in and lock it down in. Now these do take a lot of work to get it out because those threads kind of hold in there. But it's well worth it for me because it locks this bench down in a way that I have never felt before on another bench I've worked on. And I really, really like these. It's somewhere around this point where the video files disappeared. I have no idea where the rest of them went. So yeah, just imagine me drilling that hole a little deeper, but this time I came back in with an impact drill and drove it down into the concrete. So these pins actually go down through the wood and into the concrete underneath. Does that make this stable? you bet your honkin' bananas it does. This thing is solid. Now, when I pound on this, the force is going straight down into the concrete underneath, and it is incredibly solid. And it feels really, really good now. And the nice thing is, whenever I want to move it, I can pull these pins out. Now, it's going to take a good bit because the threads are fairly tight in there, but I can pull the pin out and roll it around on the wheels. And the pads that it's sitting on are ever so slightly higher than the rubber. And so that means that I'm not getting dust in there or having to clean them out. I can roll the bench around, and then when I want to, I go back to those exact same pads and set it back down there. It's nice and level, line up the holes, put in the pins, and it's just as solid as it was before. I know a few of you are going to be absolutely horrified about what I did, but honestly, I absolutely love it. And so if you don't want to do this, you don't have to do it. And I'm kind of in a weird case with concrete, wood, and rubber, making the floor a little bit squishy. It's not a problem for rolling things around on it, but if you're really banging onto things and chopping, I want this to be solid, and this answers the question. I've only been in this shop for 2 years, and we're starting to get to the point where this bench is almost done. I've got a little bit more material I need to do to it, and yes, I haven't even put finish on this yet, and I'm finishing up the last vise that'll be going on this side. Hopefully that'll be coming out in the next few weeks, and then I need to flatten the top and actually apply finish to it. I'm going to put in a little bit of carving in a few places. And I've got a few other little details that have to happen, but at some point this bench will be basically done. And by that point, I will basically be dead. So yeah, always having a little bit of fun in the shop. Hope you like this. If you have any questions, thoughts, ideas, snide remarks, or things that I could have done better, please let me know down below. I do love reading through those, and I learn a lot from it, so thank you. You may also notice that there are a bunch of names scrolling over here. Those are the fantastic, wonderful, benevolent, and gorgeous people over on Patreon. Because without patrons, we would not exist. We are completely sponsored by you, the viewer. If you'd like to find out more about that, go to patreon.com, links down below, or wherever you find all those contact points. And I think they'll do it for now. Until next time, have a wonderful day. So because this is now anchored down into the concrete, which is anchored down into the earth underneath it, does that mean that my bench is now the weight of the entire earth? Why, yes, it does.